Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
So this is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the State Republican Party, as well as being the Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. I am Judge Richard Weinberg. Welcome back to Let the Record Show. The breaking news today, Jesse, and there's a lot of breaking news on all kinds of issues, but the breaking news today, to me, as a House Democrat, is particularly sad because I think a great man is leaving the United States House of Representatives and will be a great loss to this country and certainly to the House of Representatives and to the Republican Party. But above everything else, he was a great man who was a real patriot, cared about America, was very professional, was a grown-up in a room with a whole bunch of children, and was sabotaged, and I mean the word sabotage, by what I call, Jesse, the Crazy Eight, those radical right Republicans who sabotaged Kevin McCarthy's speakership and cost Kevin the speakership. And what did Kevin do wrong? What he did is he made sure that there was a continuing resolution to fund the government and that the debt ceiling was lifted, so there wasn't a default. Understand that. No default on the debt and continuing funding of the government. And he was betrayed by whom? He was betrayed by the Crazy Eight, who wanted to shut down the government. They didn't want to do anything to cooperate. And he was betrayed, by the way, by the Democrats in the House because he did the right thing by this country and by the institution of the House of Representatives. And he did the right thing, and he was sabotaged by the Democratic leaders of the House. They should have fought to keep him. They should have given him the votes to stay on as Speaker, and that's a real loss. Kevin McCarthy, a great speaker, a great congressman, a gentleman both of us know, you better than I, you being the Republican leader, but I've met him on numerous occasions, thoughtful, generous of spirit, highly intelligent, a student of history, one of the great leaders of the party, a great fundraiser for the party. And the real question is whether the party can ever replace somebody like Kevin McCarthy. But I want to get your thoughts about the loss of Kevin McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's a pleasure. And let me just first begin on behalf of myself and Judge Weinberg, wishing all of our friends of the Jewish faith a happy Hanukkah as the Festival of Lights is ongoing from December 7th when they hear this. I echo all of your terms and everything you said about Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, the loss of Kevin McCarthy is loss not only to the institution of the United States of America, I mean to the House of Representatives, but he's a loss to the state, to the United States of America as well. He was someone who put the country first. He's someone who aligned the country and his party together. He took tough, bold steps to keep the country first. And unfortunately, as you referred to, the Crazy Eights, and honestly, I believe it was a personal matter between the head of that Crazy Eight group, Congressman Gates, and Kevin McCarthy, that led to his ouster. His impact as a member of Congress, as a Republican conference leader, and as Speaker, even though it was for 8 months, I think will be felt for years to come here. He had to take some bold steps to protect this country and protect his party from a shutdown, especially in the middle of an election season. There are those in this party, Congressman Gates being one of them, that as he was engaging in this debate on the recall of the Speaker, that he was fundraising on it. And I think that's, for a lot of reasons, that is unseemly. There's a time and a place for campaigning. There's a time and a place for fundraising. The future of our republic and the future of our party was not one of them. I do believe that this is the last we will hear from Speaker McCarthy. The one place that you and I do differ on is that it's the Republican Party and the Republican conference's job and responsibility and obligation to keep its house in order, and it did not. The Democrats did what the Democrats always do. They played politics. They have demonstrated not on just in this occasion, but on many others, whether it be the Department of Justice, the FBI, the IRS, the judiciary, the Supreme Court. The Democrats have no regard for the institutions of government, the institutions of the United States. They are simply pawns in their game of power, influence, and the peddling of that influence, and basically enriching themselves, whether it be through power or the purse. As I said, I think the House conference and the House of Representatives is going to feel the loss of an adult like Kevin McCarthy, but I believe, and so will America in the short term. But as he said when he announced that he was resigning, I believe that it won't be the last we will hear from him. He is a true patriot, and I use that with a capital P, in the true sense of the word, for this country, for this party, and for the House of Representatives.
I agree with you on this, Jesse. You see, it seems to me, I'll tell you what the sad thing is as an outsider looking in. There was a book written about the young bloods of the House of Representatives, and named three people. One was Eric Cantor of Virginia. The other was Paul Ryan of Wisconsin, who later became a speaker. And the third was Kevin McCarthy. And they were supposed to be the future of the United States House of Representatives, as well as the future of this great country. All three of them now will be out of the House of Representatives. And why did that happen? It happened with Cantor because some extreme right-wing commentators decided that Cantor wasn't right-wing enough, so they ran a professor from some 10th-rate college in Virginia against him in a primary. Cantor would have been the speaker. They drove Cantor into this primary. Cantor lost. They would have had a speaker from the House of Representatives from Virginia. It was a great loss to Virginia, but it was a great loss to the country because Eric Cantor was a brilliant strategist, thinker, understood public policy and economics, and he was a link. He was a link to large constituencies across the country. So they lost Eric Cantor. Then they had another first-rate person, Paul Ryan, as speaker, and he had the same problem that McCarthy had. He had a renegade group in the House who made it difficult to govern the conference, and he said, enough of this, and he left the House. Now you have Kevin McCarthy, who is brought down by a shameful vote by his own caucus, allied, by the way, with the most extreme left-wing radical progressives who helped vote him out. So that's the great irony about the so-called purist right-wing group. They allied themselves with there's a crazy eight and there's a whole bunch of crazy progressives in the House, the Democrats, and they aligned themselves to drive McCarthy out, a good common sense person. So the loss of people like McCarthy and Cantor and Paul Ryan is enormous, because when you lose people like that, they're not easily replaced. The good news for the country, for the House of Representatives, and for the Republican Party is the House conference finally got itself in order, and they got themselves a very first-rate person you've met and you know, Speaker Johnson of Louisiana, and he's a first-rate gentleman, a great mind, a true gentleman, and I think will exercise grown-up leadership. The question becomes, will the crazy eight or other Republican right-wing dissidents make his life so intolerable that they threaten his leadership or threaten the ability of the Republican Party to sustain a winning campaign in 2024 for the House of Representatives? What say you?
Well, I think you're right. I know Speaker Johnson. I had the honor of hosting him in Suffolk County and in Long Island a week ago today, from the airing of this show, when he was hosting a fundraiser for Nick LaLota, our congressman from the 1st District. And what I found about about the Speaker Johnson is that he is a member-driven leader. He wants to speak to the bottom up, and he's very principled. He's strong in his beliefs and in his leadership, but he's also very approachable and soft-spoken. What I liked most is how he so easily checked off, the 7 principles of the Republican conservatism about individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. The fact that he actually wrote those 7 principles when he became as a member of Congress, and now he's instilling those 7 principles or bringing them more and more to the forefront is truly it's refreshing for someone like myself. Many times local Republican parties are judged by how the national party operates. And I think that, I'm not breaking any stories here and saying that, the national party has been having its issues through its own leadership. The discourse about earlier this year, its leadership battle in the House of Representatives, and then the direction of the party. We've seen that in many of the races this year and last year, throughout the country. And it's amazing that in a deep blue state like New York, it's here on Long Island and New York where the House of Representatives Republican majority has been created through the 11 members of Congress we elected here in 2022. And just in 2023, the victories we've had here locally. In Suffolk County, we've elected the first county executive since in 20 years. We elected a supermajority in the Suffolk County legislature. That's the first time the Republican Party has held both seats in 27 years. It's like 1996 all over again. And, of course, my dear friend Joe Cairo and his, great wave of victories in Nassau County and reelecting his legislature, taking a majority in the town of North Hempstead, a prominent Democratic stronghold. So we see that there are flickers throughout the nation of success in the Republican Party. I believe that Speaker Johnson reflects that. And, we are here in Long Island, Nassau County and Suffolk County, and other parts throughout the region, beacons of true Republican hope for the future.
Well, I think that's right. And it becomes very, very important, as you and I have discussed, between ourselves or amongst our guests when we've had on, to have a 2-party system that's effective, checks and balances, countervailing forces, different voices, so you do not have one-party government, and a one-party government, particularly in the coasts, whether it's California or New York, controlled by extreme left-wing fringe. That's a danger to the continued viability of this country. So let me do a segue for us, Jesse. I think what we want to talk about today is a conversation about some inconvenient truths. We'll see about how many we can get to the course of this program. I believe that today, and I'm very deeply troubled by this, that the world is a much more dangerous place today than when Donald Trump left this country as leadership, as President of the United States. You have this axis of evil that's out there. You have weak leadership in America and by America. It's awful. We have the erosion of Pax Americana, the global system of peace through American strength. I'm very, very troubled by this, and we'll pick up on this when we come back from the break. But I just want to say this. In my entire life, I don't think there's been a more dangerous time than what we're facing now. The combination of an axis of evil that we've discussed before, which consists of Iran and Russia and China and North Korea and Venezuela, is enormous. And as we speak, Venezuela is making noises about going in and taking over territory of Guyana, its neighbor next door. That's only possible because of the weak leadership of America and the abandonment of any meaningful enforcement of the Monroe Doctrine. and buying of oil from Venezuela, rather than throwing that dictator, that savage dictator out, they've bolstered him. That was part of the policy of weak leadership and trying to placate authoritarian dictators who suppress the people and who are a threat to world peace. And I'm talking about Venezuela. So if you want to talk about how dangerous this is, the axis of evil keeps going on the march. We have weak leadership in America that fails to understand, has to be confronted, that appeasement does not work. And this erosion of the Pax Americana is being replaced by adventurism by these different regimes. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. We'll be right back after this break for more conversation about some inconvenient truths. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Clorox Sentiva smells like grapefruit. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
Okay, we could be here all day. Try Clorox Sentiva for a trusted clean with long-lasting freshness. Also available in lavender and coconut. Use as directed.
Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Ray Dalio, legendary investor and New York Times best-selling author, wants to pass along his understanding of how countries go broke, because he believes the U.S. budget and debt situation needs to be addressed. To give you that knowledge, he has put the draft of his book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle, online for free. It's available now at economicprinciples.org.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. When we left the first segment of the show, we're talking about the premise that the world is a much more dangerous place, which I believe is an inconvenient truth. We talked about the axis of evil, weak leadership by America, which is causing chaos throughout the world, and that's the Biden administration's national security or lack of national security policy, and the adventurism of these foreign countries. The lack of leadership has caused the erosion of Pax Americana, which is a system since World War II, which created peace, relative peace and stability throughout the world. And I'm deeply troubled, as I said to Jesse earlier, that these are the most dangerous times that I've lived through. Jesse.
Absolutely. And when we talk about America's leadership on the global stage and Pax Americana, a policy that dates back to World War II and Nazi Germany, where peace was going to be ensured by a strong America. Right now, with the Biden administration, his foreign policy is more of a vacuum. It's a vacuum of leadership by America on the global stage, whether it be in the European theater, the Middle East, Russia, China, Africa, you name it, Central America. There is a vacuum of leadership here. Biden has withdrawn America from a leadership position because our allies don't trust us any longer. We are not supporting our allies as we should. Sometimes our foreign policy is a question mark. The perfect part is Israel and this Israeli Hamas conflict, where it's the United States telling its ally, its true and only ally in the region, Israel, on how they can conduct a war. And we would not have accepted that in the wake of 9/11, and Israel should not have accepted it now. But because of Biden's withdrawal in the global stage and this vacuum that's been created, Cuba, Iran, Venezuela, the Middle East, Ukraine, all these pockets of global turmoil are as a result of America not being in a leadership position. This is problematic. It's led to this new axis of evil, or as I refer to them, the axis of resistance. Same, different words, same meaning. This weakness on the global stage has allowed China and Russia to grow. They've grown in our hemisphere. China has got intelligence in Cuba. Iran is working with Venezuela. Iran is trying to broker, along with China, is trying to broker agreements diplomatically and otherwise, economically and strategically in the Middle East, with Saudi Arabia included. It's becoming a problem, and I don't see it I don't see any end in sight except with a change in the White House. And this is a theme we're going to hear quite a bit today from me. More than 73 attacks on U.S. forces in the Middle East region have occurred, and they've been conducted by proxies of Iran, financed by monies, the Iran deal that Obama instituted, and the hostage deals of $6 billion that Biden has approved have helped finance. Secretary Blinken said that these type of acts, any attack on a U.S. armed forces, would be dealt with swiftly and effectively and efficiently. We have not seen that. We have not seen that whatsoever. There's been no reaction. And by not acting and by taking the period one of inaction, it is emboldening our enemies. It's emboldening the enemies of the Western civilization, of republics and democracies throughout the world.
Well, that's very well said.
What say you?
That's very well said. Let me posit the following to you. And I don't think people truly understand this, and they should be paying attention to this. Iran is an existential threat to Western civilization.
Yes, it is.
What they seek is hegemony, which is a Greek term for domination, and this domination is by a radical, crazed ideology, which is both religious and political. Their goal is the imposition of their religious views and their cultural views, their worldviews, not just on the Mideast, but into Europe and ultimately the United States. People have to understand that. If you look at the religious tracts of some of these Islamic extremists, if you look at the political tracts, the ideological tracts of those groups, world domination is their goal. So when people say, well, it's Israel's problem, what do we care what happens to Israel? Israel is a bastion of freedom and democracy. It's under attack by medieval barbarians. And if, in fact, Israel loses, world civilization is going to lose, Western civilization is going to lose. Europe has already made the terrible mistake of having unlimited immigration. So the balance, the demographic balance in European countries is flowing to these people from the Middle East. Now, Henry Kissinger said very starkly and very, very clearly that the big mistake with these open-door immigration policies, this excessive generosity of spirit of Western civilization, is we're letting in hundreds of thousands of millions of people who have no commitment to the values, cultures, laws, concepts of tolerance and understanding and national unity. We're letting people in who are really becoming fifth columnists, threats to the institutions, threats to Western civilization. They come in, they want to pose their own values on the territory of France and Italy and Spain. And if you understand the history, the Islamic extreme culture has always been imposed by the law of the sword. It's always been a dedication to conquest. And once they think they've had conquest, even though it's been rolled back, they believe they have an absolute right to reimpose their control of sectors of the world. And that includes Europe, Jesse, and that's a real problem. So this existential threat to Western civilization, first roundup, is Israel. And as you correctly point out, Jesse, Israel is being told by Biden and Blinken, fight with one arm tied behind your back. The fact of the matter is we would never tolerate that, nor should we. We had to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki because we had to win that war. Otherwise, the cost would have been hundreds of thousands or maybe 1 million American soldiers and God knows how many Japanese. We had to do that. We had to take out Dresden and firebomb Dresden because otherwise there would have been continued resistance against the Allies by the Germans. Sometimes you have to fight a war, and unfortunately, there's collateral damage in a war. And people say, well, Israel is not abiding by international law. In fact, they are abiding by it. They're the only country who fights a war trying to limit casualties, whereas Hamas goes out of their way to increase casualties because they want to use it as a talking point of public relations. They don't care how many of their own people die. They deliberately use their own people as hostages. They shoot them when they try to run away. They put them in the armed Hamas people, and with their weapons are put in schools, in hospitals, in mosques, under residential buildings. That's what the fight is about. And this is troubling because we have to wake up before it becomes too late. Your thoughts, Jesse?
My thoughts are this. Those who condemn Israel about the way they're conducting their conflict to defend their borders, what about Hamas? What about Iran? What about those who are advocating for Hamas's tactics? The last time I checked, war crimes included raping, beheading of children, caging of children, systematically killing civilians and their families, again, rape and torture. So where is this about? I'm also I'm flabbergasted. This week, the Biden Department of Justice announced that they're filing war crime charges against four Russian members. Where are the same charges against those who are committing these atrocities against humanity in the Gaza and in the battle with Israel? Where are the war crimes there to hold everyone accountable for those who finance them, support these terrorists and these animals? As we say about Iran, they are a complete and direct threat. I do think, though, they're cagey. They're like that bully on the play yard. Until they don't want a direct conflict, they want to scare you. They want to use other tactics to scare you. I really don't think that Iran wants a direct conflict with Israel or the United States. It remains in the shadows. It takes its shots using our own monies against us and our allies and such. Iran has made several threats. They have said that any intervention by the United States, a minister said this, after the two United States carrier groups entered the region, that any intervention would be a strategic mistake for the United States and would lead to and would make Americans legitimate targets. In our first segment, there's been more than 73 attacks and 73 member forces injured on Iran-backed actions by their proxies, and we've taken no action. This is something that's wrong. And, there is something going on here. They are feeling emboldened because their rhetoric is getting a lot more fiery. Their state-run media and their state-run social media has referred that the victory of Allah is near. The victory of God is near. Using their religious zeal and to infuriate and infuse more aggression amongst their people, to actually cover up the actions of their backed terrorists. This is something that the United States has, a problem the United States has created over the last 3 years. It's a self-created problem, and we removed ourselves as a position of leadership there and allowed China and allowed Russia to move forward into the region. And you can say anything you want about the fact that Donald Trump's tactics and his approach could be questioned, but the results were there. There was no Ukrainian-Russian conflict. There was no a terrorist attack like this in the Israeli against Israel. ISIS was defeated. Iran was put into check. And along the way, we made NATO and our allies pay a little bit more for the defense of the European theater and the Western Hemisphere. Nothing wrong with that. The approach may be different. It may be tough. It may not be diplomatic, but it was effective and it was respected. That is not the case today under the Biden administration.
I think that's exactly right. And I'll tell you what troubles me deeply. All this is going on, Iran's actions funded by our money and our weakness.
Yes.
But they don't even have a nuclear weapon yet. Just imagine, Jesse, what these people would do, these mullahs would do, if they had nuclear armament. What possibly could we do to check them then, to contain them then? They're doing this now with impunity. Now is the time to slap them down hard. For example, if you have the Houthis shooting at American ships and merchant marine fleets and ships in the Red Sea, first thing you do is you go in and you just bomb the living daylights out of the Houthis in Yemen. Just you find out where you have the capacity through satellite imagery. You know exactly where to find them. You take those guys out. You take out thousands of them so they know stop shooting at independent merchant marine ships, and stop shooting at our fleet that's in the Red Sea. Stop it now. Okay, that's the Houthis. With respect to Iran, very simple. Once and for all, go after their nuclear facilities. Go after their nuclear facilities and help Israel take them out. You can't do it yourselves. Give Israel the green light and give them the flyover rights, as well as the bunker bombers, as well as the equipment to do whatever is necessary, the refueling of planes, whatever is necessary to allow them to do that. If you don't want to do that, Jesse, tell you what you do. The money that we've been giving them by the tens of millions and hundreds of millions, and even billions of dollars, has been used against us. But they're also making money through their oil production. You know what? Take out their refineries. Next time it happens, take out some of Iran's refineries. Drive their economy down so they can't afford to do this. That will...
Your Honor, isn't that what Ronald Reagan did? When they popped up their heads, wasn't their refineries hit or their oil production system hit in the early 80s?
I think so, and certainly it was clear under the Trump regime that they were going to pay a price if this happened. You know, you have to allow people to defend themselves, and we're not. Again, I keep saying this is not an Israeli question. This is a world civilization question, a Western civilization question, and you got to take down. You have to take down Iran. You have to check them. You have to contain them, and if they don't get the lesson. But when they keep firing into empty tents and warehouses, take out their people. You have to take them down. You have to allow your allies to take them down. And that's biggest ally, as you correctly point out, is Israel. We have to take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back in a few moments with more interesting conversation on Let the Record Show.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
It's a real privilege to be able to travel and to see different places, taking yourself out of comfortable positions and challenging yourself.
No one builds a legacy by standing still. Start your journey at remova.com.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series, starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com. This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the state Republican Party and the county chair of the Suffolk Party, one of the great leaders of the Republican Party, not only on Long Island and the state of New York, but across the country. So, Jesse, continuing our conversation about all the threats that are going on in the world because of the weak leadership of the Biden administration and the growth of this axis of evil and the erosion of Pax Americana. A notable example about that is the problem of Ukraine. It was a victim of a savage attack by the Russians. It was allowed because Biden said, well, a minor incursion is not such a big deal. Except it turned out to be a very big deal with the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives and displacement of millions of people, and keeps going, and doesn't seem to be an end to it because Ukraine doesn't want to give up its sovereignty or its territory, and Russia doesn't want to give its ambitions for domination. And the whole thing, in my view, is you cannot look at the Ukraine in isolation. Ukraine was on the cusp of joining NATO, which was a threat to Russia. And so they went after the Ukraine. But, of course, they want all their minerals and they want all their ability to grow wheat. You know, it's a real breadbasket for the world, Ukraine. So this would be a big victory. But let's not forget, if they're successful in Ukraine, they're sending out a message to all the other former members of the Soviet Empire that they're at risk too. So you'll have Estonia and Latvia at risk. Even Poland could be at risk. You have the encouragement of ruthless ambitions. For example, Erdogan of Turkey making noise that he sees some of the territory of Greece as his. Imagine that. You have a system of the total disruption of world peace, and it's fed by weak leadership. In my humble opinion, Biden administration has done too little, too late. Our friends in the Ukraine are at a crossroads. If they lose, Western civilization loses too. What say you?
I think you're absolutely correct. What I think we've seen here, if you look at it, Ukraine is at a bit of a crossroads. And as we've been reviewing what's been going on in this region, number one, let me go back to what you said, because I was looking at my notes and you said it and it clicked. President Joe Biden said that statement casually. A minor incursion is okay. He said it early in his presidency, and he said it almost at the beginning of this of this war being going on, a Russian incursion into Ukraine. Now, I'm not sure, Your Honor, if that was the first of what now we know a lot of missteps and where his cognitive abilities have been questioned. It was just something that he was not processing properly as he mumbles and jumbles his words and tries to shake hands with people that don't exist. Or, of course, says God live the Queen on a patriotic day for America. Or is it more sinister that the United States was aware and he was giving Russia the free pass, the open door to do what it was doing? And of course, Russia being what it is, why take an inch when you can take a yard, or in this case, hundreds of miles? I think you're right. Russia views Ukraine as a strategic asset. You're also right. that it's better that that battle is being fought there as opposed to here. It is a battle and an effort and an issue that we need to address as a country for the whole of our freedoms and the whole of our allies. But right now we're looking at a situation where Ukraine, it seems to be going into more of a defensive posture. That may be as a result of weather. We're a year and, I believe, 8 months into this war, and really no side has really moved much. You know, the counteroffensive that Ukraine launched in the summer has not moved much. And now we know it's moving a lot of its resources to domestic arms production. And, of course, it's domestic fortifications.
Well, in a very real sense, Jesse, the reason it was limited in its ability on the counteroffensive is because we didn't give them the equipment and the supplies they needed in a timely basis.
True. And we've always said from day one, March of 2022, I believe it was, when this war began, the United States was slow. Biden was slow on giving the resources, military support to Ukraine. It was almost too little, too late. We've caught up in such. But I don't understand that now we're talking about Russia again, is talking about negotiations. Putin is talking that he'd like to look at political and diplomatic means of ending this war. I'm not sure if you can trust the Russians. Not sure. I mean, look what they do to their own, problems. Planes fall out of the skies and political enemies die, of heart attacks or plane accidents. I believe
a lot of people jumping out of a lot of windows with help.
Yes, they are. And a lot of people having heart attacks that were healthy. So it's amazing there. But it's important. And I agree. And I think the British Foreign Secretary or Foreign Minister says it best. And for all republics and all democracies across the world, we need the support for Ukraine is there and it's there for as long as it takes. But in terms of U.S. funding, I have to be a little bit more diligent with the U.S. tax dollars. I have seen no problem in any foreign aid, any military monies that are going to be going to any foreign country to support an effort like this or others, that there needs to be an accountability. There needs to be an accounting of that money. We've seen so many times where, questionable leaders skim off the top. Sometimes they take most of it and only the little bit of the skim actually goes to the resources that it was intended to by this Congress. We also need to see and understand a plan, and we need, and I do agree with you with this, Your Honor. I mean, I know there may be a bone of contention with you, but the new aid packages need to come in separate bills. Let's have the American people and the Congress and the Senate debate funding for Ukraine separately than funding for our allies in Israel. Israel deserves that. It should not be, our support should not be tied to anything else because the goal is the same. The goal is the preservation of democracies and republics and the stopping of tyrants, terrorists at the borders and in different regions. Because eventually that battle is going to come to the United States if we do not take a leadership role, if we do not take a leadership position back on the global stage. We have to fill that vacuum we've created with our own leadership.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very concerned about what's going on between the House and the Senate now about the funding. I think you can make a strong case that each one, that is money for the border, for our border, money for Ukraine, money for Israel, should all be treated separately. I can make that argument. After all, I did go to law school, and I did fairly well, so I can make that argument. But, and this is the big but, time is not on our side. So if we dither around while the wars are going on and we can't reach an understanding about how to fund them, there's going to be a loss for Israel's ability to defend itself and a loss for Ukraine to defend itself and a loss for the border to be protected. And that's the delicate balance, Jesse. And now I'm not smart enough to tell you who has the better argument. I can make the argument on both sides because that's how you're trained in law school, on the one hand and the other hand. Putting on my judge's hat, I would say time is against us. Therefore, Speaker Johnson needs to just say, okay, I'm going to do a universal bill with all three components. Because I'd hate to see Ukrainians defeated and embolden the Russians and Putin because we were not resolute. I'd hate to see Israel not having the resources it needs to protect against this Hamas insurgency against a civilized democracy. I would hate to see our border continue to be opened while we talk about this. At a certain time, you have to just bite it and just move on. You bite your lip, you vote the right way, you fund it, and you make sure that the resources are there. Because these people in Israel and these people in Ukraine, they're fighting our fight, Jesse. And as you correctly point out, these are just the first steps. If we're not fighting them there, we're going to be fighting them here, and we need to do something about that. Phil has just given us a signal. We have to take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back in a few moments with our final segment of Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
Bring on your business challenges, the complex ones, the ones that seem to change every day, the ones that are so nuanced no one else could possibly understand them. Bring them all on. Key has a team of banking experts specialized in your industry, always ready to take your call and offer trusted solutions. And we go even further, staying ahead of trends so that you have answers before you even knew you needed them. Bring on your business challenges. Key Bank opens doors. Learn more at key.com/B2B.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor, powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
Are we still on the trail? Is this pack getting heavier? More switchbacks? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves.
Just a little further. You got this.
That we find only outside.
Wow. Look at the stars. This is incredible.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We're switching gears now. We're turning our attention to the United States of America. And a large point, it's not just about America, it's also about the world. But let's talk about this cancer of rabid anti-Semitism, which is alive and well in the United States and in the world. And you have these declarations by these college kids. They're ignorant, not too bright. They're indoctrinated. They're calling for intifada. And let me tell you what intifada means. It is the declaration of a violent revolutionary action against the existing institutions. That's what it means. It means violence, destruction, bringing down the current order to impose their will. That is what intifada is. It's not about sitting down and having a nice conversation or spiritual cleansing or any kind of nonsense narrative that the apologists try to explain it. It is not a religious event to make us feel better and be closer to God. It is an attempt to destroy those people who are perceived as your enemy as you try to impose your will and destroy the institutions that you object to. What say you, Jesse?
I'm sorry?
What say you, Jesse?
I apologize. It was a bad connection there. I completely agree. I believe that this anti-Semitism that's growing and rising in the United States is being fostered by the indoctrination of not only of academia, both at the higher education level, colleges, universities, and also the indoctrination of our students where they're being taught America is not exceptional, where they're trying to be told and molded into all these different type of dividing us actually into different boxes instead of uniting us, even at the high school level, now middle school level, and even elementary school level. I also hold responsible the mainstream media and big-time corporations in this. It seems that in their rise for ratings or their rise to their thrive or their thirst, excuse me, that's the word I'm looking for, to shape a new world order, it doesn't matter that of atrocities being taking place in this country or against any type of people, Israelis, anyone. It does not matter. But it's being allowed. And I think that the only way that's going to be checked, and I've said this over and over again, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself from different shows, but I'm heartened that those people who of great means who fund these institutions like Harvard, Penn University, and others that have allowed this anti-Semitism to grow, to be unchecked. It's not right. If you cannot call someone an expletive or a term on their race, you should not be able to do the same thing with Israel and Israelis and those of the Jewish faith. You should not do that. It should not be allowed. Last week we discussed it. There's been about a 200% increase from one year to the next in New York City PD on anti-Semitism acts of criminal acts and such. But it needs to stop. And these entrepreneurs who fund these institutions are finally saying, we're not going to be giving you any more money. And unfortunately, for these institutions, that's the only way to get their attention. It's the only way to get their attention because they're trying to carry out this agenda that's anti-American, it's anti-Semitism at its height, and they're trying to justify it. That's what kills me, is they're justifying this as a discourse. This is not a discourse. This is pure, unadulterated anti-Semitism that must be stopped. It's amazing that if a Republican or conservative institution or think tank was doing the same thing, the type of the cancel culture and the wokeism would come hammering down on their heads, and everyone would be told to resign or be arrested. That's just one man's point of view.
Well, that's exactly right. And the weakness of the leaders of the great institutions, MIT, Penn, Harvard, in fighting this and letting these crazy kids calling for murder and extermination and genocide, and then rationalizing it that it's okay because they're supporting the oppressed, whatever that means. Okay, anybody who's against your point of view is the oppressor, and any person you support is the oppressed by definition. So they try to control the narrative. But the weakness of the college administrations, and shown by the hearing that was taking place in Congress, is very compelling because they say, well, one college president, I forget whether it was Penn or Harvard, I think it's Harvard, and she said, well, we have a policy about free speech and we have to respect all kinds of diversity of opinion. And of course, we oppose hate speech, but until it turns into action. In other words, you have to have some Jewish kid on a college campus murdered before you're going to impose a value system where this is unacceptable. Let me be very, very clear as a matter of law. Hate speech is not protected speech.
It's not.
Hate speech is not protected speech when you call for the extermination of your fellow human beings because they differ from you, whether by race or religion or ideology. That is not protected speech. And it was pointed out by Congresswoman Stefanik from upstate New York, a very distinguished Republican leader in the House. She said, well, if they were calling for the extermination of all African Americans on the campus of Harvard in Cambridge, and would that be acceptable to you? Do you have to have a lynching or a murder of a black student before you try to control this kind of violent speech? It's an incitement to violence. Incitement to violence is not protected speech. And what they've done is these college professors and these administrators, the administrators are weak. The college professors are indoctrinators. They have an agenda. They're trying to shape the minds of the kids. They're showing intolerance as a virtue. And let's be very clear. You're getting some of the most important schools backing this play, and these are the training grounds for the people who will become the lawyers and the doctors, the future leaders of industry and government in this country. You're creating, in our own country, an indoctrinated class totally against the values of true diversity. They use the word diversity all the time. And true enemies of democracy and freedom and respect for their fellow human beings. This is all.
I want to add one thing. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I want to add one thing. And we just saw this and you were absolutely right. You said so eloquently about that protected speech does not include hate speech. But when you have anti-Semitism is also when leaders of our country or elected officials of our country, use their words. Let's go back to this about a week ago last weekend, when Congresswoman Jayapal, Jayapal, she did not condemn the rape of civilians by Hamas during the October 7 invasion. She did not say that, it took almost a week of being rebuked by members of her own party and by the Republicans in the House for her to finally change something. It's amazing that this is allowed to stand. These are the type of representatives we have, and these are the type of representatives that big tech and mainstream media have been propelling and raising their voices to have a stage. And I think it's absolutely wrong.
No, I think you're right. I mean, the problem is that everybody should say that. Remember, and I said this the other day on Cats at Night. I said, look, the use of rape is a war crime. It's well recognized. Use of rape is a war crime, and it's used all across the world. It's used by the Russian troops in Ukraine. It's been used by tribes in Africa when they fight each other. It's an awful thing. But this wasn't just about rape in the incursion. Not only did they rape these women, but they mutilated their bodies. They tortured their bodies, and then they killed them. They cut them up into pieces and they mutilated them. So I'm not a supporter of rape. I despise it. It should be punished. It's a war crime in and of itself. But this was rape plus. And the key thing about this thing, Jesse, and you have to understand, this was not spontaneous action by troops who lost their minds momentarily because they were hopped up on drugs. This was a deliberate, calculated plan. When they got the dead bodies of the Hamas soldiers that were taken down, they had their plans. And it said that they were going to go out and they were going to rape, they were going to torture, they would mutilate, and they were going to go after families. It was all in their playbook for this attack. And that's what's so scary. Jesse, Phil just gave us the sign. We have to sign off for this week. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to speaking with you next week.
Let the Record Show.